Holy crap, you guys. Welcome back to Tuesday Bro Newsday. You know, this show's gone through a lot of iterations over the years, and what we do nowadays, and by we, I mean me and my far left co-host fact checker Danielle Jones over there, what we do nowadays is, we unpack the news as it relates to the world of vaping, tobacco control, tobacco harm reduction, smoking, cigarettes, Stanton glance, I don't know, and the such as. I try to avoid a lot of really divisive political talk over here. We try to stick to science and vaping because that's what matters. This is not a partisan issue as much as some people want it to be. This is a scientific issue, and that's what we're trying to focus on. But welcome, you guys. I have a question for you, though. Is it acceptable to distort the truth to get people to do what you want them to do? Interesting question posed. That and many more will be answered today here on Tuesday Bro Newsday. But thank you guys. Appreciate you guys coming out, being here. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk news. We're gonna talk advocacy. We're gonna talk a little bit of science. We're gonna talk a little bit about like what the hell FDA? Like what did the FDA try to get away with? Just unreal things. But luckily that's all turned around. But welcome, you guys. I guess we'll just kick this off and jump into some news. Addy Tooney, I see you there. Appreciate you. Breeze Tones, appreciate you. Matthew, appreciate you. I'm going to have... Here, let's just start. Let's just jump into Tuesday Bro Newsday. Hi, Danielle. I haven't heard you say it. How are you doing today?
I know. I don't want to interrupt your little intro
it's good.
beginning.
I was just speaking. How are you doing today? Good?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Freshly showered.
Feels good. Tuesday is shower day for me. Tuesdays and Thursdays.
It's shower day for me too.
So I look forward to the Tuesday shower day. It's good times. I get one of the first things I wanted to mention right out of the gate, you guys. Hang on. Dawn from the chat says, "Hey Nick, could you please start way earlier with your live streams next time? You have a large fan base in Germany and Europe, and fuck, I have to go to work tomorrow." I'm sorry, Dawn. I'm stuck here in the beautiful United States of America, so that's what replays are for. I appreciate you, Dawn, and I appreciate you trying to be here during a live stream. You know, I've been considering doing a week or so of alternate timed live streams just specifically to cater to people in Europe and in the UK and like Australia where they can't watch live. So it's like I would wake up at 7 in the morning and have the vlog going by like 8 a.m. Wow. And then I'll just vlog and drink a beer in the morning, you know, just so the UKers can watch live, just so you Germans can watch live. Anyway. Appreciate you guys being here, but man, FDA, you know, FDA is they stick in our craw, in our social collective craw, so to speak, from the vape industry. They stick in our craw quite a bit, but it isn't just vape companies that are having the FDA stuck into their craw. Mm-hmm. Stuck into their craw. They tried to, here, let me just show you this. Check out this Reason article. So this was the Reason article that kind of started all of this. Right. FDA attempted to charge distilleries and vape shops $14,000 in fees when during COVID they stopped producing whatever liquor and spirits and vape liquid that they were producing and switched to hand sanitizer, right?
Right, to help.
Yeah. Public service. They're not producing their product. They're producing hand sanitizer for the greater good. You know, they're trying to keep us safe, keep us clean. And then the FDA comes up to these companies that were doing this and said, by the way, you owe us $14,000?
Yep.
That's kind of unbelievable. I mean, that's more than unbelievable. $14,000. That's like, thank you. Also, you owe us $14,000. I appreciate you trying to keep United States citizens safe and clean and sanitized. And I appreciate you, taking the time out of what you'd normally be doing to produce hand sanitizer for the country. Now you owe us $14,000. That is Bananas.
It's crazy. And most of these companies, from what I understand, were either like some of them were giving away the products for free, or they were just charging like cost or something. They weren't trying to like, this was literally a charitable thing that they tried to do. This was not like, ooh, we'll pivot to make money, like, which also technically would have been fine. But that's not like what was typically happening. It was, you know, they were literally trying to help.
Literally just trying to help. And then you get slapped with a $14,000 FDA fee. It's not a fine. It's not a tax. It's just because you did that, you owe us money.
Right.
That's
some arbitrary like fee thing about whatever. Like it was BS, to be honest with you. It was some stupid thing.
Complete BS to begin with. And if these companies had known ahead of time, you know, if you go, hey, Mr. Distillery, you can make hand sanitizer for the United States and just whatever. You can switch to hand sanitizer, help everybody. But if you decide to be a good person and help create hand sanitizer for the United States of America, FDA is going to charge you $14,000. If you knew that ahead of time, we would have had a hand sanitizer shortage.
Yeah, I don't think, because these are not like, this isn't Bud Light or like, you know, Budweiser or something, right? Like these are small, like craft distilleries. Like think of them like a small e-liquid company. You know what I mean? This was not like some huge conglomerate trying to do this.
Right. Small businesses, small companies, and vape shops started, I mean, not vape shops, but vape manufacturers started doing the exact same thing, switching their e-liquid lines for hand sanitizer lines, and they got slapped with the same $14,000. Well, it turns out that that's not happening.
Right.
This is not happening because of this particular Reason article that kind of went viral by Jacob Greer, who I'm a fan of Jacob Greer. He took it upon himself to write this article in Reason, basically saying, what the hell, FDA? What the hell? Well, I'm not going to sit here and read this whole thing, but he did post a recent update about the reversal. So it is essentially Jacob's story here that went viral and caused the FDA to go, okay, well, we'll reverse that and not charge.
Not even FDA. It was HHS, who's basically like FDA's daddy, right? Like, so HHS was like, wait, what? And they saw all this bad PR from Jacob's article, and they went over to FDA and they were like, smack. And they were like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
We're not, you guys. We stopped them. They're not going to do it. This isn't happening. It's okay. You weren't allowed to do that, FDA. It's not happening. Don't worry. We got rid of it. Like, daddy went, what?
You know, I can't believe, yeah.
I'm not condoning child abuse by any stance, but like, guys, that was funny. HHS was like, they straight up said, like, FDA doesn't even have the power to do this. Yeah. We are not allowing this.
They cannot do this.
Do that for vaping.
But the thing is, you know, exactly, right? Hey, HHS. Hi, we're over here, guys. Over here. Now, so the messed up thing about all of this, and I'm not going to spend much more time on this, shout out to Jacob Greer. Huge shout out to Jacob Greer for being an amazing human, an amazing writer. Shout out to everybody that shared this and eventually got this $14,000 fee reversed. But what kills me, absolutely kills me, is that if no one had noticed or no one had said anything and it didn't get on Jacob's radar and he didn't write this article for Reason, they would have just gone through with this. FDA's like, well, if no one's going to stop us, let's just take all this money. They don't even hold themselves accountable or take a second to go, should we?
Right.
Should we, in the middle of a pandemic, when small businesses are already going under and there's other small businesses that have pivoted and now they're selling hand sanitizer
to help,
should we slap them with this $14,000? And everyone went, yeah, well, unless anybody stops us, right? Ha ha ha. They were just going to do it and not even say one word about it. That is insane that your federal government cares so little about your small business that, you know, short of this like viral article of this article going viral, nothing would have stopped them. Nothing would have stopped them. And that's insane. And that irritates me to no end. So look, we'll add this to the list of reasons why we don't really like the Food and Drug Administration, why we don't really trust the Food and Drug Administration. I'll have a link down in the description. Jim McDonald wrote about this for Vaping 360. He did a great job. Jacob also has his in Reason Magazine, and I'm going to link down in the description to both of these so you can see how this whole thing it's crazy how this whole thing kind of unfolded, how in just a matter of like 2 days, it went from this $14,000 fee to now we're walking it back and we're not having the fee because of all this pushback.
It was fast.
It was fast. And it was fast, and it was like a little bit inspiring, man.
Yeah.
Like
look at the people making a change.
Yes. Look at the people making a change. Look what they did. Look what they changed, and it changed. I find that really super inspiring. And so Hell yeah. I'll have links down in the description where you can read Vaping 360, the Jim McDonald there. You can read the Jacob Greer, the Reason Foundation article, and that's just crazy. Can't believe the FDA was just going to try to squeak that by and hope nobody would notice.
Ugh.
I know.
This is why we need journalists, you guys. I know we get angry at them a lot, but also this is part of the reason why we need them.
Well, I mean, this is a good example of why we need journalists. Yes.
Right.
Like journalists that are journalists.
Right. I'm not making any corporate. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
journalism. Yes. This is why we need journalism. So moving on from that, there is actually, hang on. Moving on from that, there was 2 comments that I wanted to read. I think they were from last week. I just wanted to share them. One of them was about Sweden and nicotine real quickly, and another one was about mental health. We talked a little bit about guns last week, guns and mental health, and someone actually had a pretty good comment there, but I wanted to share this one about Sweden really quickly. I don't know if we got any Swedish. Anybody in the Swedish here? I think it's way too late for anybody from Sweden to be here. But in Sweden, Fox left a comment here and said, "Great vlog as always. Some sad news for Sweden in 2021, though. In the beginning of January 2021, the tax on Nick shots will be increased by 50, that's Swedish kroner, will be increased by 50 Swedish kroner per shot on top of the 20 to 40 kroners per shot already. This will cause the Nick shot cost from 70 to 90 kroner per shot, about $7 to $10. So listen, when you buy a 60 ml bottle of e-liquid in Sweden with a Nick shot, it's the equivalent of $34 US. That seems crazy for
That's high.
Really high for a 60 ml bottle of 3 milligram nicotine. It's not even like they're taxing the Nick shot, but I feel like you're overtaxing that Nick shot because that Nick shot is going to get diluted. I guess, they don't look at it that way. They look at it as like you're getting taxed for this product. Whatever you do with that product afterwards, that's up to you. It seems ridiculous to me that a pack of cigarettes in Sweden is about $6 US, and a bottle of 3 milligram e-liquid is $34. In Sweden, of all places, I just found that really shocking. And it's not that I hold like Sweden on some European pedestal, but they're not nicotine naive.
That's the birthplace of snus.
It's the birthplace of snus. They get it. They get nicotine. They get harm reduction. They know that they have some of the lowest smoking rates in the European Union because of things like Swedish snus and harm reduction. And I mean, it's crazy. I don't know. I was really disheartened by that. So shout out to my Swedish vapors. About $40. Yeah, it sucks.
Do you want to hear something crazy though?
Yes, I do. Crazier than that?
Yeah, crazier even than that. So I bought some DIY supplies because I'm gonna, one of the flavors that I vape is becoming the flavor that I vape is not so much available anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get into DIY. And so I bought some my supplies, right?
Yeah.
And my nicotine that I purchased,
Yeah.
because I live in California, I paid just in taxes. Just in a nicotine tax.
Nicotine tax.
Not including sales tax, $35 just in tax.
Whoa.
And then plus sales tax.
Whoa. That's bananas.
Yep.
That's bananas. I hate this trend of let's make vaping harder to access and more expensive than the product that is killing people. I hate that. I hate this with every fiber of my being. I had one more comment here. Talk a little bit about mental health, and I thought this was just a really interesting comment building off of our conversation from last week. But Mrs. Slacombe, she says, Danielle, I like that you said you intended no stigma to mental health issues. However, you were not stigmatizing simply by stating the truth. I have mental health issues, and I would never own a gun for that reason. I have bipolar type 2 disorder, and I know that I could never trust myself to use proper judgment in using a firearm if placed into a situation where I might feel the need to use it. I also realize that during my mood swings, I might be more inclined to use it when I shouldn't. There's no stigma in saying that the mentally ill should not have guns. Some of us realize we shouldn't. Others who are mentally ill and can't see that for themselves are probably the first ones who would be making claims of stigmatization. I just thought that was really interesting. You rarely see that. You rarely see someone say, oh, you're not stigmatizing it just by talking about it. Just by talking about it and speaking the truth. And this person's very well aware of, their limitations and their ability and what they feel comfortable doing. I just really wanted to share that comment because it's so rare to see such a self-aware person. It's just really interesting. So that was from last week. Now, there's still a lawsuit going on, Danielle Jones. Mm-hmm. You aware of this? I had completely forgotten about this lawsuit. It was 200% off my radar. I didn't know that it was still a thing literally until today, but Big Time Vapes, where's my headline? Big Time Vapes appeals FDA lawsuit to the Supreme Court. We're going to read this. This comes from Mr. Jim McDonald over there at Vaping 360, and he says a Mississippi vape shop has petitioned U.S. Supreme Court to review its lawsuit against the FDA, which failed in 2 lower federal courts. The odds are stacked against the court granting this petition, but attorneys for the small businesses are hoping the unique legal basis of their challenge will catch the eye of conservative Supreme Court justices. Filed in 2019, the lawsuit by Mississippi vape shop and e-liquid manufacturer Big Time Vapes and trade organization, the United States Vaping Association, challenges the Tobacco Control Act itself. Wow, ballsy. Yep. Dang, that's ballsy and a half. The Tobacco Control Act itself, charging that Congress unconstitutionally ceded its legislative authority to the FDA when it gave the agency the power to deem products like vapes that were not specified in the original 2009 legislation. The challenge is based on the doctrine of non-delegation, which I was not familiar with until literally I read this article. I end up reading so much stuff that it takes me a really long time to read one article because there's so many words. I have to look up words and it's not even that. It's like you have to look up things in the article and then you have to look at what those things mean in the context. Right. It's a lot. It takes me a lot to get through something.
It's research inception.
It is. It really is hardcore research inception. You're going down a rabbit hole and then 2 more rabbit holes open up. So shit, go down, it's anyway. Mm-hmm. This challenge is based on the doctrine of non-delegation, which it will get explained, which states that Congress cannot give away its own legislative authority to executive agencies like the FDA. Oh, right. Giving a little bit too much power to just non-elected government officials. The doctrine, which is part of the principle of separation of powers in the Constitution, has been applied before by the High Court, but not since 1930s. However, a recent Supreme Court decision, Gundy versus the United States, indicated that the court may now be willing to take a fresh look at non-delegation. This is a good word. This is a good buzzword to know right now. Mm-hmm. Conservatives who want to limit the authority of unelected bureaucrats believe that the current court, with the recent addition of Trump's appointed justices Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, may be shopping for a case that can be used to reassert the doctrine. There's a tweet from Gregory Connolly, which I'm not going to read I'm not going to read the thing. He just gives a little bit of insight on it. It says, the original complaint was dismissed by the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi in December 2019 and failed on appeal in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals last year. Big Time Vapes and the USVA are represented in their petition to the Supreme Court by Jared Wayne Navarre and Austin M.B. Watley of the Houston, Texas-based Navarre law firm, the same firm that filed the original lawsuit and the appeal. This petition marks the first time the vaping industry has attempted to appeal a case to the nation's highest court, taking it all the way to the top, Danielle Jones. However, it remains a long shot that the case will be heard. To be accepted for review, 4 of the 9 Supreme Court justices must agree to grant a writ of certiorari.
Some long Latin word.
Latin for to be made certain. I wrote down a phonetically spelled version of it.
Oh, look at your little heart.
Yeah, it says California on it. Certiorari.
I believe
I'm going with it.
I feel like
it's close enough. The number of petitions accepted for review by the Supreme Court each year is small, only about 2 to 4% of those submitted. If the court does not accept the petition, the lower court's decision will stand. Big Time Vape's petition was filed December 18th, 2020, and it could be several weeks before the petitioners know if the Supreme Court will grant certiorari and accept the case. If the writ is granted, the vaping industry's petitioners, lawyers, and Department of Justice lawyers representing the FDA will each have time to file briefs and responses, followed by oral arguments in the court. A final decision, if the court even accepts the case, could be a year or more away.
Yep.
And that's even just to get accepted to be, reheard, appealed, essentially, in the Supreme Court?
It's basically a final appeal, essentially. You have to lose a lot to get up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, you have to lose a lot to get to the Supreme Court. So they say, unfortunately, that the odds of this are pretty low, are pretty slim. But if this, stranger things have happened. If this gets...
You're not wrong.
If this gets to the Supreme Court and it gets heard and Big Time Vapes actually wins this lawsuit, that changes literally everything.
Oh, yeah.
Every aspect from top to bottom gets changed.
That would completely invalidate, all the
100% of the regulations, 100% of everything.
All the FDA stuff, PMTA stuff.
Yes.
People would be scrambling. It would be crazy.
And honestly, I don't think it's that far off because, look, I'm a high school graduate, period. That's it. No higher education. So using my brain to look at this, if the original smoking prevention, what is it called? Tobacco Control Act.
Yeah.
Was written in 2009 before the advent of vapor products, and vapor products aren't included in it, then, that makes sense in my head that this shouldn't cover vapor products,
well, the problem
right?
is they wrote a little note in there that says FDA can classify anything they want to as a tobacco product.
Anything they want to.
And that's what this is about. So the crutch of this argument is that section of the Tobacco Control Act that says, FDA, you have a free-for-all to call whatever you want a tobacco product. So they're basically saying you can decide to regulate anything as a tobacco product
Eggplant,
that you want to.
apples.
Right. Whatever. I mean, they're, ideally they wouldn't be ridiculous, but maybe they are, you know what I mean? But it gives them the ability to decide what they're going to regulate. And that is what this lawsuit is about. This lawsuit is saying that ability to decide what does and does not fall under their jurisdiction is giving them way too much power, that only Congress should decide this goes under your purview and this goes. So they're arguing that if Congress didn't say regulate electronic cigarettes, then the FDA should not be regulating electronic cigarettes.
Yeah. Yes. And I think, I don't feel like that's completely an unreasonable thing.
I don't feel like that's a super unreasonable argument either.
To keep that power with Congress makes sense. To give that power away to unelected, bureaucrats, I don't know. We got a Supreme Court. I want it to get heard so bad.
I do too.
I at least just want it to get heard. What's up, Stu Rep? I see you in the chat. Appreciate you being here, man. Yeah, I want it to get heard. I guess we're going to try to follow this as best we can. It's a hard thing to follow, but we know some people who write things down for websites, so we can try to usually get as best we can. But hell, look, this is still going. It might be a really blunt weapon, but every weapon in our arsenal, right? Using every weapon in our arsenal, no matter how blunt. This one appears to be a little bit blunt, but if the circumstances all line up, this could be a damn thing. And I would love to see this be a damn thing. I would love to see...
It could be epic if everything, if the Supreme Court agrees to hear it, and then if they gave a favorable ruling, this would turn the world tipsy-turvy. You know
literally
what I mean?
Upside down.
It would be bananas.
Banana cakes. It would be literally upside down. And that alone, I mean, apart from the cheering that would happen, apart from the celebrating that would happen, it would just... God, it would feel so good. It would just turn all of tobacco control upside down, and people would be scrambling. It would just be enough just to see the tobacco control landscape after this happens, and just see everybody freaking out, and Stanton Glantz is freaking out, and everybody's freaking out, and all the tobacco controllers are freaking out. And, God, it would be fun. Chaos. That's a glimmer, Breeze Tones. Exactly right. That's a glimmer. Yo, Rising Phoenix Vapory. I don't know if any super chats popped in. Were there any? Oh, there was 2 in there.
I thought I saw one.
Yeah, we got Trey. That's very gracious of you. Glad to see you, Nick. Always looking forward to your streams. Always looking forward to you being at my streams, Trey Watt. Appreciate you. Fuck YouTube. Whoa. I wish the country was run by science, not politics. Sciocracy. Look, I agree. The unfortunate part of it is... scientists are bad communicators, and they're bad at explaining things, and they're bad...
Oh, we're going to get into this, right? Is this a great segue?
This is a great segue. They're bad at all of those things, and so I want a science-based legislation, but we need scientists. We need people that can explain what the scientists are doing, and it can explain these studies. We need journalists to write about and disseminate the information for the masses from the scientists. I'm just not...
Everybody take a vape.
I know, I'm just not used to it. I guess we're stealing that bit. Let's have a vape break.
Toot, bitches. That's the train that runs by my house. If you guys never watched That's What She Said.
Oh, that's the train.
That's the train. It's not usually this loud during the day. Sorry.
Do you know what the train's carrying at all? You know?
Oh, people. Yeah.
People? Oh, human people on the train? Oh, interesting.
Yep, that's Caltrain.
Okay, interesting. Oh, there you go. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, don't remember where I was. Yeah, scientists. So I love scientists, and it's like when you look, if you just got a download of the National Youth Tobacco Survey, you wouldn't know what to do with it. You wouldn't know what you're reading. You wouldn't know what to do with it. You wouldn't be able to communicate this information to people. And I'm just saying you and like the royal you. I wouldn't know what to do with it. So we need people that are subject matter experts who can disseminate information. We need journalists. And then we do, as much as I'm a libertarian, we do need responsible, well-informed lawmakers and politicians to be able to craft the legislation that is based on science. It's an ecosphere. We need more than just the scientists, because
right. Yes.
Just the scientists, we'd be talking in circles and nobody would understand anything. And
and just like anything, you're going to have on any given topic some scientists that think this way, and they've got their data that says this, and then you've got other scientists who think they've got data that says this. I mean, this is not always like, yes, there is like, science is objective, but it's also subjective.
Yes.
It depends, because science is based on people, right? People design the methodology, people design the protocols, people design the studies. And that there can be flaws there. There can be flaws in interpreting the data. There can be flaws in a lot of different places. So science is good, but you guys also have to understand that, like, just saying, like, tobacco, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids thinks that they have science on their side too, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to understand. Now, it's bad science, and we know that because we've looked into it. But, everybody can claim they've got science. But like Nick said, you need, competent subject matter experts to look at this and go, okay, I see what your results say, but there may have been a flaw here in your methodology. This part doesn't really make sense. So your science, not exactly as high quality like the Cochrane people do, right?
That's what I was just going to say.
That kind of thing.
And that's why we need things like the Cochrane Library to do this meta-analysis, to like weed out bad science, bad methodology, flawed methods and
study design.
Yes, methods and study designs. And it's a huge, and if we learned anything from You Don't Know Nicotine, it's that there's a huge like ego component to it too, where if you've thought one way your whole life, to suddenly have that challenged, you don't necessarily suddenly willingly go, oh, okay, I'm on board with this new stuff. You dig in. People dig in. They dig in, they get set in their ways, and they get further entrenched in whatever previous, thought process or belief system or ideology that they had before. It's a messy place, science is.
I mean, nobody wants to be wrong, right? Nobody likes to be proven wrong. No. I mean, there's some people that do it better than others, right? Sure. But for the most part, it's tricky. Like, it's tricky.
It is. It's tricky. And speaking of tricky, this whole thing is tricky. Before we even get into this, what we're going to do right now is talk about our main topic that is the thumbnail, which is youth vaping trends. All we've been hearing about, I don't know, years now, right? Youth vaping epidemic, youth vaping epidemic, youth vaping epidemic. It started in 2016, youth vaping epidemic. Just gateway effect. Oh, all these kids are going to become smokers. It's a gateway effect. They throw up percentages of percentages, which we've talked about here, and they make those numbers seem a lot more intimidating when they are, as far as percentages. And what's the scale of this line graph? It looks really severe up and down, but when you scale it to realistic proportions, it's just these little dots down here that aren't doing much. Use the scariest sounding language and then inflate that scary sounding language to just, whoa. And that's one of those things where if you're just a regular dude, and I'm Nick, and I'm just a regular voter dude, and I'm relying on experts to tell me things, experts aren't always,
they can have agendas.
They can have agendas
they can have
too.
Bias.
Like that's the hard part. They can have agendas. They can have bias. They might not be 100%, familiar with what's going on. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later as well. Science. Let's hydrate real quick. Yeah. Feels good, man. So trends. Youth vaping trends. To deny that any youth are vaping is, wrong. irresponsible. There are youths vaping. I mean, no one's pretending that they're not. The questions that really we have for government organizations like the CDC is how many, like, what is the real number? You can't just say epidemic or 1 in 8 or 50% of teens that vape use flavors. That's not information. That's just scary numbers. 50% of teens who vape use flavors. All right, well, how many teens vape? Epidemic? Okay. Clear as crystal? Right. Of course not. So before we jump into this, I just want to say I did only graduate high school. I am not a scientist nor a mathematician. I'm farthest from the mathematician that you can be. Whatever the opposite of a mathematician is, that's where I land on the spectrum. Bad at it. But this is Trends. Listen to this exciting title. Trends in electronic cigarette use and conventional smoking, quantifying a possible diversion effect among U.S. adolescents. See, this is why scientists don't write headlines either, because that is a boring-ass little headline right there.
Yeah, also, what does that even... I mean, to the average person, what does that even mean?
Quantifiable as a possible diversion effect. Don't worry. The author of this, Ariel, has a Twitter thread that explains it. How we doing on time? Oh, we're doing pretty good on time. I just want to leave enough time for that Fauci thing. That's really all I'm concerned about. Got to get to that Fauci thing. You're a math surgeon jamming with Jesse? Are you really? I'm just kidding. I know you are. I don't even need to ask you that. So, trends in electronic cigarette use and conventional smoking, quantifying a possible diversion effect among U.S. adolescents. What does that really mean? What does this really mean? What they're looking at is the off-ramp versus on-ramp argument, the diversion versus catalyst, the gateway versus exit. Mm-hmm. This is what they're looking at. When they mean diversion, they mean the off-ramp terminology, an off-ramp for adult smokers to get off of combustion. The impact of electronic cigarettes, I'm just going to say e-cigs from here forward because I don't like saying electronic cigarettes, and I don't even really like saying e-cigs. It's just easier when you see an E to say e-cigs than vape. It messes with my brain otherwise. The impact of e-cigs on nicotine use is hotly debated. Some fear that e-cigs are a catalyst to conventional smoking, while others argue they divert adolescents from the more harmful product. This study used simulation modeling to evaluate the plausibility of catalyst and diversion hypotheses against real-world data. So essentially, what they did is, now I'm not going to sit and read this whole thing. I'll have it linked down below in the description. You can download the full PDF and attempt to read it if you want to. But I would suggest that you don't do that. Just go to the Twitter thread and read her explanation for it. So essentially, what they did, and I'm going to paraphrase this, they looked at the National Youth Tobacco Survey. This is the survey that CDC does literally every year. Literally every year. What they did is they looked at 19 years of it. That's a huge data set. That is a huge amount of data and information. Adolescents aged 12 to 17 years old in the National Youth Tobacco Survey, a cross-sectional study from 2000 to 2019, 12,000 to 31,000 per wave. They looked at exclusive cigarette use, exclusive e-cigarette use, and dual use of both products. They were defined using cumulative lifetime criteria. So this was the 100 cigarettes or more and or less than 100 days vaped. And even just adding that little tweak to it is probably going to change the outcome exponentially, considering that CDC only asks what prior 30-day use once in the last 30 days. If you vaped once in the last 30 days, they mark you down as a current user.
Right.
That's the official, you're a current user.
Yep.
This is already a bigger deep dive than that. Already a bigger deep dive than that. And the author of this, you guys, good evening to you, Red Vaping advocates. Just talking about some science. Welcome. Thankfully, the author of this has a real great Twitter thread, and we're just going to read through it And there's pictures and graphs and everything. So I promise it's not just me talking. And this is from Ariel Celia.
That's what I would guess. That sounds right.
Ariel Celia. And I can already guess, like even just looking at Ariel's Twitter profile, you can kind of guess why this has not been picked up by any media outlets anywhere. And it's because she consults for Juul. She's a tobacco harm reduction consultant for Juul. And so that one little word, right? Juul, there's a stigma to it. There's like this connotation of shadiness.
Industry funded.
Yeah, industry funded shadiness. This is like, this is basically big tobacco science. And
she addresses that at the end of her Twitter thread. She's very upfront about it.
Yeah, she's very straight up upfront about it. And look, I agree with her. I believe her. I like Ariel Celia. And let's read her Twitter thread. You guys hanging in there okay? Everybody good?
You awake in the back?
Everybody awake in the back? You need to stand up and stretch before we go into the next big... Okay. How do e-cigarettes affect cigarette smoking among youth? My paper with Flofoxen,
another person,
simulates each scenario and finds out which one best matches actual trends. And there was a little poll attached to this as well, where it seems like the majority of everybody voted that it was a diversion off of tobacco. E-cigarettes are not a gateway. They're a diversion off tobacco. A few people said no effect, which I find really very interesting. So let's just jump into this thread. First, let's talk about why this question is so difficult to answer. Counterfactuals. We can't know the alternate reality answers, like which smokers would have never started in a world without e-cigs and which non-smokers would now be smoking without e-cigs as an option. That is brilliant. We can't know alternate reality answers. That's just not even a possible thing. So the best thing we can do is use fancy, sophisticated methodologies to estimate what would have happened to youth smoking rates in the absence of e-cigs. In our case, simulation modeling. Yeah, simulation modeling is a thing. This is one of those things where it's like, all right, now I gotta learn about what simulation modeling is. How it gets used, what they use it for. It's pretty fascinating. I mean,
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they use it for loads of stuff. It's really very helpful. So first, she says, we look at the declining smoking trends that were already happening before e-cigarettes were a thing. Here, I'll show you this graphic right here. We are already... Oh, come on. Twitter. Okay. First... we look at the declining smoking trends that were already happening before e-cigs came onto the scene. That line right there down the middle, that's 2010. That kind of represents the quote-unquote beginning of e-cigs, the beginning of vaping. We project them into the present. This is our base case scenario about what smoking trends would be if e-cigs were never invented. Actual trends were lower than this base case. So you can see the actual trend right here, hyper low, crazy drop off, right? Like 2011, right after vaping, boom, down. And this is nicotine use, correct? Danielle
I believe
Jones?
this is smoking.
This is smoking. Okay, yes.
It says smoking trends, yeah.
Smoking trends. This is the smoking
cigarette,
trend.
probably cigarette specifically, because you can smoke pipe and hookah. Cigarette specifically, I would imagine.
Cigarettes specifically. So it was already on a little bit of a downward trend there, but as we can see and as we've seen, I mean, Danielle, you've put together charts based on basically...
I did one very similar to this that was like the trend before, the trend after. And it gets very... Clive Bates, I got a lot of the information from him. He's done the same thing.
So that's very... And I saw this and I instantly thought, oh, I've seen this graph before. I've seen that graph. Danielle Jones made that same exact graph like a year ago. I've seen that.
Yep.
So... side note about terminology. She says, we use the term catalyst instead of gateway because catalyst is more precise about the claim we're modeling, that e-cigs are used first, then casually lead to smoking. That's the catalyst term. Whereas gateway can include other mechanisms like renormalization. No, it's a terminology thing, right?
Right.
And personally, I like the term catalyst more than I like the term gateway. And I'm going to start using it because it makes me sound smarter, like Ariel. She goes on to say, starting from the base case scenario, we switch on a catalyst effect where e-cig users also start smoking. We assume a worst case scenario where all dual users have gotten there because of a catalyst effect. So basically what she's modeling here, what's modeled here is if everybody was right and the introduction of vaping and e-cigarettes led to more people smoking. If the gateway effect were real, if the catalyst was real, then this dotted swoopy line would be where consumption is going. If they're real, if they're right, then this is where smokers should be headed. This is where youths along this dotted line should be headed, as opposed to the actual data. Now this graph, oh shit, let me get this off of here. What am I doing? Go away, trends. This graph represents all nicotine use. So this is cigarettes, e-cigs, and both. This is everything included, right? That's why we have that big spike at the end between 2017 and 2019 is the uptake, I'm assuming, vaping. Right, of vaping.
Yeah.
Right there. We assume worst case scenario where all dual users have gotten there because of this catalyst effect. This further over predicts actual trends. And the more that you dig into the National Youth Tobacco Survey stuff and data, you wonder, how did they ever come to the conclusion of a youth vaping epidemic? How did those words even come out of Scott Gottlieb's mouth, knowing what we know about the National Youth Tobacco Survey data now?
Well, we know it was from a focus group. They focus grouped the word epidemic. And they were like, what's scarier? That's literally, we have data on this. There was a presentation that somebody, it's a focus group. That's how they picked that word.
Epidemic. Because that was the most, scary sounding word. The most effectively scary sounding word was epidemic. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Fantastic, Scott Gottlieb. So, based on these two previous charts, the gateway theory doesn't fit reality at the population level. Then, starting again from the base case scenario, we switch on a diversion effect where e-cig users are prevented from ever becoming smokers. Says this is closer to the actual trends, but still overpredicts, meaning a stronger diversion effect is needed to explain reality. Now, this looks really similar to the other one. Looks really very similar to the other one. Diversion effect. So this is if e-cig users are prevented from ever becoming smokers? I don't understand. Diversion model is closer, but still overpredicts nicotine users, meaning stronger diversion is needed to explain reality. Yes, because that's not what the trend did. So even on this model, that doesn't accurately describe.
Doesn't match, right.
It still doesn't match. It still doesn't accurately describe like what's going on in the real world.
Right.
So we optimized the simulation model to find how large a diversion effect would have to be to match real world trends. Exponential decay constant, here you go, exponential decay constant of 55.4% of e-cig users a year are prevented from ever smoking. Constant of 55.4 of e-cig users a year are prevented from ever smoking. Mm-hmm. How many times do I have to read this before it clicks in?
It's confusing.
This is basically the idea that vapors aren't going to vape forever.
Right. That's how it was explained to me. I texted a couple PhD friends, and this is real deep math that we don't 100% need to understand this part to understand the fullness of the study.
Yes.
But it's basically a decay constant is basically how many people will fall off and stop using it over time.
Sure.
Is my understanding.
Right. I get that. Yes. And really, I think the big takeaway from this is how tremendously they had to fuck with the model to get the model to actually match real world conditions. Like, what did it take to actually, to get to where we are right now? How did they had to fudge the models so much to make it fit real life. What is exponential decay constant? It is related to the concept of half-life. Yes. Of e-cig users is assumed to decay exponentially if left alone. Okay, a standard modeling assumption 55.4 describes how fast this decline occurs. Higher means more e-cig users prevented from smoking. So a higher number's better in this decay constant scenario. Right. Which really we don't even have to understand. All you really, again, need to take away is how badly they had to fudge with the model to get it to fit real life trends. Finally, we switched on both effects, figuring that e-cigs may act as a catalyst for some and a diversion for others. Even in the presence of an opposing catalyst effect, a net diversion effect is necessary to explain actual trends. Here's the actual trend again, and this is how they had to fudge it so that it matched the actual data. Even in the presence of an opposing catalyst effect, a net diversion effect is necessary to explain that actual trend. How did it get so low? She goes on to say, altogether, real data are much more consistent with a diversion effect, a rather strong one at that, than a null or catalyst gateway effect. So the conclusion that she's coming to is that the real data over the course of 20 years from the National Youth Tobacco Survey shows a consistent diversion effect rather than any catalyst gateway effect. In Correct. The simplest terms possible, that's everything that this study just said. She clarifies a little bit here at the end. This doesn't conclusively prove a diversion effect, but it does show that population-level trends are much better explained by a net diversion effect and are wildly inconsistent with a net catalyst effect. And that's basically a science-y way of saying it makes more sense that smokers are quitting with vaping than nicotine-naive users picking up vaping and moving to cigarettes.
Right.
Smashing the gateway.
She's not saying she can prove this cause and effect, but right. She's saying this scenario matches the actual data way better than what the ants are claiming, basically.
Yeah, way better than the catalyst effect. And then she has a disclosure. I now work for Piney Associates, which consults for Juul Labs on tobacco harm reduction. However, this study was completed and submitted before these activities began in a purely academic position. In fact, my line of research is why I joined Piney.
I think it's Penny.
Penny?
I think it might be Penny. I don't know for sure, but Piney, I feel like it might be Penny.
Piney just sounds so much more like wholesome, you know? It's real Norman Rockwell. Piney.
In my head, I've always said Penny Associates.
Okay, maybe
I don't know which
you're
is right.
Piney.
Because Pine would be Pine, right? 2 N's. I feel like changes
2 N's. You're right. That's
right, like tinny and tiny.
Like dessert and desert.
Oh wait, does that disprove my point then?
I don't know.
You know what, you guys? Call it whatever you want.
We're gonna call it Piney Associates. So essentially, this is what she does. She works in tobacco harm reduction. She's a tobacco harm reduction consultant at Piney Associates. She does tobacco harm reduction consultant for Juul. And this is their model of, I mean, again, not proving it, because science, you have to use a little bit more reasonable of terms and moderate of terms. You can say things like very likely, not like absolutely empirically, but right. This is getting, right on top of the pile of pro-vaping science that shows a lot of things that we've been hearing about vaping don't necessarily pan out when you're faced with the actual data. And the fact that she looked at 19 years of data, that is unbelievable to me. And she still came to that same what explains this real world data? It can only be that this is probably a diversion effect happening instead of an on-ramp effect happening.
Right.
And that's kind of one of the things, that's science is slow.
Yeah.
It's not a quick thing. It's studies on top of studies, and then those studies get peer reviewed and dissected for their methodology, and then those studies might need to be redone and different waves of different studies before they can even come to not even like a conclusion, but like a theory that's backed up with facts. It's just a long, slow process.
It is.
Long, slow process. But after 19 years, thanks to the CDC diligently taking notes for us for 19 years, we can use their data and go, hey, but this. Hey, but this.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, but this, Ariel. So thank you, Ariel Celia. You don't know who I am, but thank you for this study. I'm going to post a link down in the description to where you can read the study. You can read this Twitter thread. I would highly recommend it. In fact, I'm going to put in the description, I'm going to put an easier way to read it. I'm going to do a thread reader. Thread reader in the description and in the chat. Makes it so much more easier. It's like reading from a website. You don't have to deal with silly Twitterness and stuff like that. But how are we doing on time? All right, we got some time for Fauci, you guys. We got some time for Fauci. So that was a lot of stuff I just threw at you guys, and I apologize, but it's a bunch just because there's been, a lot going on. I really wanted to talk about that $15,000. I wanted to talk about some things that were going on in Colorado as well. We'll get there eventually at some point. I might do this on the vlog, Danielle, but I thought this was interesting. A realtor reached out to me because he said that in the realty world, they have been dealing with the idea of vaping indoors.
Okay.
And if that will devalue your home.
No.
And apparently this is a question that he has been getting asked when showing homes is, has anybody vaped or smoked in here? Do people vape in here? Did people vape in here? And apparently that idea of someone vaping in a house before you buy it devalues the home.
That doesn't really follow science for several reasons. And I know exactly where that comes from. It comes from this very bizarre concept of third-hand smoke. I don't know if you're familiar with like third and fourth-hand smoke.
Yep.
It comes from that. The thing is, vapor isn't smoke. It reacts differently. Vapor can be cleaned off of things. Smoke like embeds itself in things. So my fast answer to that realtor would be no. As long as you clean the house, you will never know.
It's an interesting topic. And he's got a whole like blog post about it with charts and everything. He did a survey and asked people if you bought a house and down the road you heard, the previous owners vaped, or would you buy a house if you knew that the previous owners were vapors? Interesting survey results. I'm going to save it for the vlog because I want to get to the Fauci stuff, but I just thought that was fascinating. There was a rule at my old apartment in Hollywood of no smoking, no vaping, no nothing anywhere. And I just vaped all over that apartment. I vaped on my patio. I vaped inside. I'd use my Volcano on the patio inside. Break the rules. Damn the man. And apparently
all you have to do is clean. It's not, there's nothing.
Yeah,
you'll get like a VG residue. You get a little bit of, like on windows and stuff, you'll get a little bit of a VG residue.
Yeah.
All you have to do is clean. That's it. Windex. Bye.
Nope. Your home is permanently devalued now because you tried to quit smoking there.
No.
Permanently devalued.
That's not real.
Dimlit Night in with a super chat. The voice of reason is drowned out by the cries of the mob. Politicians don't need to be accurate. They just need to plant the seeds of outrage. This is one thing I noticed, and I'm not going to become one of these like, raging at the mainstream media because, the mainstream media, they get a lot of stuff wrong, but they do get a lot of stuff right. And I find it helpful sometimes when, world events and things like this and the such as. But I noticed last night when we were watching CNN while we were making dinner, they don't ever actually like answer anything. all they do on these 24-hour news channels is like pose questions constantly. Questions. Is this bad? Is this bad? Here's what happened. Here's what happened. Here's this person's opinion. Here's this person's opinion. We're not going to ever get to the bottom of it, but we're just going to keep talking about it. It's like they just want you to remember it without getting like any new information or any conclusions or knowledge or anything. It's just really bizarre. It was really bizarre sitting there listening to the news last night going, are they going to get to the point of any of this?
Are they going to tell me anything?
They're going to tell me anything? No? All right. Just want me to be scared? All right. Cool. So listen, you guys, I really appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you being here, British Eyes. You do not need to get bent. Other people definitely do, but not you, British Eyes. Not you, Phoebo. All right. We're going to end this here Tuesday, Bro Tuesday. I don't know if it's going to take that long. Sorry. Tuesday, Bro News Day. Someday I'll get the name of my own show correct.
Someday.
That'll be a fun day. But we're going to end this here, Tuesday Bro News Day. Last week, we went a little off track and started talking about guns and masks and things like that. We're going to kind of circle a little bit around, and we're going to talk a little bit about masks, but the comparisons and the parallels that you can draw from this article to vaping are unbelievable.
Yes.
Unbelievable. We're going to read a few paragraphs here. I would encourage you to just sit back, enjoy the sounds of my soothing voice, and listen to me try to stumble through reading this as a dyslexic person. So this comes to us today from, where's the Fauci? Where's the Fauci headline? Why did Fauci move the herd immunity goalposts? This is the question. Scientists play a dangerous game when they tailor factual statements to promote policy goals. We're landing right back on the question that I asked at the beginning of this stream. Is it acceptable to distort the truth to get people to do what you want them to do? I'm going to say no before we read it. I'm going to say no. I don't think it's acceptable to distort the truth to get people to do what you want them to do. That's just where I'm landing. Late last week.
I think that's kind of called lying.
I think it is.
Or manipulation at the minimum.
Manipulation? It seems like that's all we get, though, is distorted truth. You know, that targeted messaging that we get, you know? It's never like the truth. It's like a version of the truth.
Right.
So late last week, Fauci told the New York Times that new science had changed his mind on the herd immunity threshold, but he also admitted that his statements were influenced in part by his gut feeling that the country is finally ready to hear what he thinks. Specifically, the fraction of people who would need immunity to SARS-CoV-2. I'm having a real hard time reading today. It's my dyslexia. Whenever my dyslexia is challenging to me, I think of Keanu Reeves because Keanu Reeves is dyslexic and he became John Wick, damn it. So if he can become John Wick, I can read this article.
You can.
I can. I'm going to. Specifically, the fraction of people who would need immunity to SARS-CoV-2, either through vaccination or recovery from prior infection to extinguish the spread of the virus, was initially estimated to be 60% to 70%. In recent weeks, Fauci had raised the percentage from 70 to 75%, then from 75 to 80, 85%. Allow me to quote verbatim from an article titled, "How Much Herd Immunity is Enough?" This is Fauci speaking here. When polls said only about half of all Americans would take the vaccine, I was saying herd immunity would take 70 to 75%. Then, when newer surveys said 60% or more would take it, I thought, I can nudge this up a bit. So I went to 80, 85. Of course, the herd immunity threshold is just an estimate, and the precise figure is contingent on population mixing and a host of other assumptions that may vary from location to location. The same threshold may be different in Rome than in Montana. For these reasons, Fauci has some wiggle room. But the two undeniable admissions in the Times article are, one, Fauci is, to some degree, basing his statements on what he thinks the public will accept and to what degree his rhetoric might help vaccination efforts. And two, this is the absolutely stunning part. He is admitting this openly to a reporter from the New York Times. This is not the first instance when Fauci made a public statement while considering, in part, what he believed people would do with the information. The first instance concerns masks and occurred during an interview on 60 Minutes in March. Because these comments have been subject to controversy, they are more nuanced than I commonly reported. I will reproduce them in their entirety. I personally have transcribed, not me personally, author of this article personally transcribed them from a video which runs for 1 minute and 27 seconds. The interviewer asks, "There's a lot of confusion among young people and misinformation surrounding face masks. Can you discuss that?" Fauci says, "The masks are important for someone who's infected to prevent them from infecting someone else. Now, when you see people and look at the films in China or in South Korea, whatever, and everyone is wearing a mask, right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks." Interviewer, "Are you sure of it? Because people are really listening closely to this." Fauci, "Right now, people should not be. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think it is. And often, there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask, and they keep touching their face." Interview says, "And you can get some sort of schmutz sort of staying inside there." Fauci says, Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them and people who are ill. The people who, when you look at the films of foreign countries and you see 85% of the people wearing masks, that's fine. I'm not against it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine." Interviewer said, "But it can lead to a shortage of masks." Fauci, exactly. That's the point. It can lead to a shortage of masks for the people who really need it. I remember this. Does everybody remember this? Man, this caused some controversy. Mm-hmm. And Jerome Adams, if I'm not mistaken, he did the same thing.
Yep.
He did the same thing. He said masks, don't wear masks. When really, all they were doing, the only reason they were saying that was to save it for the people who needed it. They were worried about a shortage. Is it acceptable to distort the truth to get people to do what you want them to do? Is it? Later, of course, the public messaging would shift in support of universal cloth masks. This occurred in the abstinence of any substantive new mask studies. Critics would then point to this video as evidence that Fauci was dishonest. However, a full look at the remarks suggests the comments were nuanced. While he advised against community use, he later stressed he felt it was fine. Fauci would later clarify that his words were chosen to prevent a run on masks so that healthcare workers would get first priority. But some have used this interview to question his veracity. Irrespective, is that a word, Danielle?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is it? It's not like irregardless?
No,
okay.
It's not like irregardless.
Irrespective of your feelings in these specific cases, the core tension in both examples is whether we want scientific advisors and public health experts to report just the facts as they see them, or do we want them to make additional calculation? The additional, thanks. Or do we want them to make the additional calculation of what the public would do with those facts and use that to shape their comments, aiming to maximize the greater good? Is it okay to lie in order to get people, in order for like your own good? And I see where Fauci is like this, your own good type of thing. I believe that in 2020, scientists and public health experts can only report the complete, unvarnished truth as they believe it to be. We cannot and must not attempt to distort our ideas in an effort to generate responses we think might occur. I think that right there really, really relates to vaping. We can't attempt to distort our ideas in an effort to generate a response we think might occur.
Right.
This is when people go over the top with science and people go over the top with with certain things, and you need to be a little bit more calculated in your responses. I hold this position for 4 reasons. Number 1, I also, but this is the author talking.
Yes.
The information gap no longer exists, Jake Scrapwood. Experts are not inherently smarter, more analytical, or logical than members of the lay public. Perhaps in the past, they preferentially had access to certain types of insider information. In the modern world, due to the internet, this information gap no longer exists. This dramatically changes the game. An expert cannot distort the message to the public because too many in the public can directly interrogate the source material. Didn't we just do that with the National Youth Tobacco Survey?
We did. We did.
In this case, that means models estimating herd immunity thresholds or the data underlying community mask use, drawing their own conclusions. If an expert seeks to distort their view of the science to further a behavioral change amongst the public, the risk of detection is high, at least by some in the public. As such, it runs the risk of immediate backlash and the ensuing loss of credibility. Now, in a perfect
that applies
world,
directly to tobacco control.
Directly to tobacco control, like laser focused on tobacco control, because in a perfect world, there would have been an overwhelming amount of backlash against the American Heart Association for the things that they've said about vaping, because like this article says, we have access to that data. We have access to that science. We can look at it. We can, as he puts it, interrogate the source material and make sure that what's being reported is what the source material actually says.
Right.
American Heart Association needs to lose some credibility. The American Lung Association really needs to lose some credibility. The World Health Organization, this isn't tinfoil stuff. They definitely deserve to lose some credibility. Number 2, how you guys doing? It's not an easy game to play. Human beings are masterfully complex and not easily predictable. In this case, Fauci's messaging in March may have been intended to prevent a run on masks, but it also may, to some degree, have contributed to masks becoming one of the most polarized issues of 2020, and in many quarters fostered a deep suspicion and distrust of Fauci. Admitting openly that you are selectively presenting your view of the herd immunity threshold based on your reading of what the public is ready to hear and the way in which that percentage might affect vaccine uptake is bold and unprecedented statement. Is a bold and unprecedented statement. I'm not a fortune teller, so I cannot imagine all the possible consequences, though I fear loss of trust and promotion of conspiracy theories is one. The truth is that scientists are not trained to predict what people will do with varying pieces of information in an effort to optimize outcomes. If they were, scientists would be blessed with optimal personalities and professional relationships, rarely quarreling with bosses, colleagues, or partners. Of course, that's not the case. Scientists, like everyone else, have difficulty knowing what you will do or say if you hear one thing versus the other. As such, the safest path is to always and only present the truth as closest to the real views in your heart and mind. I got 2 more here, you guys. I hope you're hanging in there. I hope you're doing good. This is good stuff.
Some good shit.
This is some really good shit. Number 3, loss of trust is incalculable. Once it is revealed that any individual has presented information selectively to get the listener to change their behavior, that person will forever be viewed through that lens, a calculating person. Is Fauci telling me this because the science supports it, because he believes it, or because he thinks hearing it might motivate a behavioral change on my part? Personally, I don't see a way back from this situation. The moment the public believes that you might be withholding, selectively presenting, or distorting information to get them to behave a certain way, they will immediately put your comments through the translator. He might be saying this because it's what he believes, but what if he is saying it in order to change my behavior? What might that look like? What does he want my behavior to be? And what would it be if he told me something else? If that's the case, what might his real feelings be? And so on, and so on. The moment you enter this state in a relationship, there is no path back. It's over. Trust is irrevocably broken. A new spokesperson is needed. And lastly, distortion steals power from the people and gives it to the scientists. In a prior column, the author argued that follow the science is an incoherent message. That's because science can tell you what might happen in varying scenarios, but science cannot tell you what to value. Science is necessary for sound policy, but it is not sufficient. Human beings voicing their concerns and priorities in concert with scientific guidance is required to shape policy, and policy fundamentally belongs in the realm of politics and in the public square. This means, slow clap after that. This means, we're going to come back to that. This means that scientists must not distort their view of a situation to get you to do the right thing, because it robs you of your ability to decide what is the right and just and virtuous course. A scientist must always and only and indefatigably.
I'm not familiar with
that word. Sounds made up. I think that's a made-up word. That's the only thing that makes sense. A scientist must always and only and indefatigably tell you the scientific truth as best they see and understand it. But we all, every last one of us who votes and participates in a society, we alone get to decide what the policy should be. As I stated at the outset, I have a profound respect for Fauci, for his career of service, and like many, I am a fan of his clear public speaking. Yet these two events force us to ask whether fact manipulation is acceptable. I believe it cannot be. The public will not trust us and should not trust us. People will put our statements through a reverse translator to try to deduce what we truly think, and it gives an unjustified power to scientists that belongs in the hands of the people. I can't control what others do, but I can control myself. If I tell you what I think, I can't promise I am correct. In fact, like all mortals, I am occasionally wrong. But I can promise you this. I can promise you that is, in fact, what I think. Period. Great. Unbelievable. Really unbelievable. Really unbelievable. Really. Follow the science is an incoherent message. That's because science can't tell you that's because science can tell you what can happen in varying scenarios, but science cannot tell you what to value. That is right on. Science is necessary for sound policy, but it is not sufficient. Human beings voicing their concerns and priorities in concert with scientific guidance is required to shape policy, and policy fundamentally belongs in the realm of politics and in the public square. Boosh. This is fantastic. I know, right, John Haymaker? Mic drop. He's not wrong. I've lost my trust in a lot of these once trusted, fine, upstanding organizations. And I know there's a lot of vapors that share that same sort of sentiment. Like before vaping, you kind of thought of the American Heart Association and they're like, it's a good group of people. They're doing it right. And they care about my heart because my heart is an American heart and you're the association of it. So of course you care about me. Of course you have my best interests in mind. Yeah. High five, American Heart Association. Fast forward 10 years, start vaping in 2019, and here we are in 2021, and the American Heart Association is telling people that switching off of combustible tobacco cigarettes isn't quitting. That has ruined, shattered my trust in the American Heart Association, shattered my trust in the World Health Organization. World Health Organization telling people vaping doesn't help you quit smoking. What? They know it does. Trust. Once you lose public trust, you lose public trust. And I really hope that the people that deserve to lose public trust soon, as soon as possible, as soon as humanly possible. This is a fantastic piece. Shout out to Danielle Jones for bringing this up. We're going to put it in the description of this video. I'm going to put it in the chat right here. MedPage Today. Yeah, MedPage Today. You want to go read it?
I think there might be a paywall sometimes, so if you have an issue, open it in an incognito window and you'll be able to read it.
Oh, pro tip from our far-right fact checker. Or far-right. Yeah, you just switch. You just switched. You didn't know. You didn't know. You went from far left to far right just because I said so. So, yeah.
Wherever the wind blows.
Wherever the wind blows. Whatever's easier, you know? It's just whatever's easier. I'm a fair weather politician. Just whatever's easier. So, yeah, you guys, I'll have links down in the description for literally everything that we talked about today. The FDA, the hand sanitizer, the Health and Human Services. I am also going to throw a link for Hope for Hope. We raised her $400 so far, but I feel like we could do worlds better. And I saw that Addie Tooney was putting that in the chat. I appreciate that.
Also, can we shout out the EcigIntelligence Survey?
Oh, yes. I completely forgot about that. Damn it. You want to take it over? EcigIntelligence Survey. Do I have a link?
Yeah, so I put it in your text messages.
Yeah,
look there.
Link.
So the EcigIntelligence Survey, you guys, CASA helps this organization do this survey every year, and it's great data that gets shared with CASA where we can learn things about, what kind of flavors adult vapors like, what kind of age groups, trends, basically things that we can use to talk to politicians. So it's really, 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 really important that you participate in this survey if you have not already. We talked about it, I think in like November or December or something. It's still going on, so please, fill it out. Any other vaping friends, fill it out, please, because we need all the data.
All the data we can get. The more data that this gets, the better off we're going to be, 100%. And it's just like going through 19 years of the National Youth Tobacco Survey data to uncover this, non-existent catalyst. Same thing. More data, better.
Yep.
Only going to get better results. Link is in the chat. Link will definitely be down in the description. And yeah, I think that's it. I think I went through all my tabs. Let me make sure. All 30 Chrome tabs. Yeah. There when there. Op-ed. Yeah.
30.
Yeah. So many tabs. Out of control tabs.
Should we pick some sort of controversial issue to get into right there at the end? Like we
did last time? In the last 5 minutes? All right. No.
Immigration.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sure. Immigration. No, we can talk about how Elon Musk is richer than Jeff Bezos now.
Oh, is that true?
It just happened. Just this month. Musk is like, hi, I'm a trillionaire now too. Eat shit, Bezos. Which again makes me go, all right, good for you. But, spread the love around, Be a philanthropist. Be a good rich person. I'm sick of bad rich people. We need more rich people like Bruce Wayne and like Thomas Wayne and Tony Stark and people that, philanthropists. We don't need Bloomberg spending $160 million to try to ban flavored vaping.
No.
Ban flavored vaping. Man, that is going to be just a pockmark on his legacy, isn't it? I mean, I have to believe it will be. Because science is going to win. Yeah, someday science is going to win. Someday there's going to be, the lowest, very little combustible use. Everybody's going to be getting their clean nicotine from pharmaceutical grade vaporizers, and nobody's going to be smoking, and cancer rates are going to be, gone, like half the cancer rates gone in the world. And then people are going to look back and go, remember when Bloomberg spent $160 million to try to ban this? That has saved literally billions of people.
Bloomberg thought stop and frisk was a good idea. Yeah. So it'll be like that.
Yeah.
Remember and then he'll have to apologize,
Bloomberg stop and frisk. The large soda ban.
Yeah, right.
Large soda ban when he was a Republican in New York. Good times. Good times, you guys. Okay, so. Oh, he moved to number 2 after an 8% drop in stock yesterday? Oh, man. Anyway.
He had it for a second.
Yeah, he had it for a second. I'm gonna put a link in the description, okay, you guys? Secret link is going in the description. There's gonna be a link. It says secret link. Click it. It's awesome. It's about Jeff Bezos, and it's like
porn.
It's it's porn. It's porn. It's porn.
This is an adult show.
This is an adult show. We do cater to adults here.
It's not porn. I mean, it might be, but it's not.
It might be, but it's not. It's definitely not porn. No, it's this really great website that is a visualization of how much money Jeff Bezos has.
Oh, no.
And it is it is sobering. It is crazy when you see like this dot represents $1,000. This line represents how much money you'll make your entire life. And this green block that goes on for 18 pages is how much Jeff Bezos made this year.
Oh, my God.
It's unreal. It's unreal. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, you guys. Thank you so much for coming out for Tuesday Bro News Day. I appreciate you guys being here. I love seeing the Grimm Army here, all my advocates. I'll see you guys on Twitter. I'll see you guys on Facebook, having the discussion, discrediting the myth-making machine, and getting ourselves as educated and knowledgeable as we possibly can, because I've said it before, I'll say it again, the science just has to win. It has to. And I mean, I can't speak for Danielle. I think I can speak for Danielle when I say we're going to do everything we can to get that science over the finish line. We're going to do everything we can. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming out. Really very much appreciate it. I guess I get rid of this headline now. From all of us here at the TBN studios in Burbank, California. I don't know. It just sounded good.
Sure,
you know,
whatever.
It was like
I'll be wherever you
TBN
want.
Studios in Burbank, California. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Appreciate you. Let's keep fighting the good fight. Continue to be excellent to each other, everybody. Okay? Peace out.
Bye.